very much. Colleagues, this is never opportunity for questions or discussion, so if anyone wants to kick us off, any questions or thoughts or comments? Oh, sorry, please go ahead, Chairperson Reed.
Thank you, Chair. I have some comments and then some questions. I want to begin by acknowledging what we heard tonight. The community members who came and spoke, to those who submitted questions, and all of the organizations who presented, including the San Diego Immigrant Rights Consortium. Thank you for bringing both data and lived experience into this space. I don't need to repeat this, but we know we're living in a time where fear is real in our communities. I would even call it terror. Families are afraid to go to work, afraid to take their kids to school, afraid to seek medical care, afraid to call law enforcement when they need help. We heard that clearly tonight, and we hear it over and over again. I do want to acknowledge the sheriff and her team for being here tonight and for the presentation. We all understand that there is a legal framework, SB 54, that governs what is permitted. But what we're grappling with here tonight is not just about what is legal, but what is the true impact of what we're experiencing. So we do see 83 transfers to ICE custody in 2025, with the majority tied to federal judicial warrants. We see over 1,000 notifications to ICE regarding individuals in custody. And we've heard from community organizations that transfers have increased significantly, and many occurred without judicial warrants, and in other cases, individuals who reported being U.S. born were still transferred. So our conversation, I believe, tonight requires transparency, it requires accountability. So the questions I'm going to ask are grounded in the data we've seen, the concerns we've heard, and the lived experiences that we've shared tonight. They're meant to get clear answers on how federal judicial warrants are being used in practice, how discretion is being exercised, how we are ensuring that no one is wrongfully transferred, and how county policy and state law are being interpreted and applied. Because at the end of the day, public safety and community trust are not in conflict. They depend on each other. So with that being said, I'd like to ask the first question. We've seen that a significant portion of transfers are tied to federal judicial warrants. When those warrants are presented, and this is for Sheriff Martinez, does your office conduct an independent review before transferring someone, or are those transfers effectively automatic? And if discretion exists, how is it actually being exercised in those cases?
So you're talking specifically about judicial warrants?
Yes.
What kind of a review are you asking if we validate the warrants, we verify that the warrant is validly signed by a federal judge, and under that I have to comply with the federal warrant. And so we notify ICE, if we receive that warrant and they're in our custody, then ICE can pick them up on the case.
Can you walk me through what that will look like?
We receive a judicial warrant, I believe. I'm going to ask Lily to come out. She's the one who's in charge of that program.
Good evening. So the Detentions Processing Division has certain methods to receive judicial warrants. That includes federal warrants, that includes warrants from other law enforcement agencies. When we receive those federal warrants, they're received through those avenues, which are secure. We don't accept anything outside, excuse me, we don't accept warrants outside of those avenues. So beyond getting it from that type of processing, we don't verify anything other than validate that it is an active warrant.
So basically, it's a secure law enforcement system that sends us the warrant, or that law enforcement agency would be able to send it. They're signed by a federal judicial authority, and then they validate that it's an active warrant before we do release.
And the assumption is that it would be for a violent offense.
No, it's for a federal immigration offense or a violation of federal law. It's a federal warrant. It would probably be applicable.
So when it is a federal warrant, the agencies contact us in order to do a scheduled pickup. Since warrants, federal warrants are outside of SB 54, we do schedule the transfer pickup with immigration.
Where do those happen?
Those happen within the security area of the facility in the final release area.
Which facilities?
All facilities have final release areas. They have security areas to be able to process that exchange.
Is it indoor or outdoor?
It's all indoors within the detention facility.
Thank you. What safeguards are in place within your office to ensure that every transfer strictly meets SB 54 criteria, including verifying qualifying convictions, timelines, and identity? And have there been any instances where a transfer was later found to be inconsistent with those requirements?
Sorry, maybe she'll say it.
Can you repeat the question?
Would you please?
What safeguards are in place within your office to ensure that every transfer strictly meets SB 54 criteria, including verifying qualifying convictions, timelines, and identity? And have there been any instances where a transfer was later found to be inconsistent with those requirements?
So this is going to be a team response, and I'm going to bring it, it's okay, our jail population management unit, lieutenant, because we work in tandem with this unit to be able to do that process.
Good evening, Board. Matthew Jensen, Lieutenant Sanitary Sheriff's Department, our JPB unit, or jail population management. So our staff uses our databases that are the law enforcement databases to look up criminal charges and history. To ensure that the penal codes that are acceptable for felonies at SB 54 are screened that the person is the one that is tied to those felony charges, that SB 54 is set forth, and they screen that and verify, make sure that they actually do the criteria.
Have you ever had a case where that was inconsistent, or transfer was not consistent with those requirements?
Not that I know of. Not that I know of.
Okay, thank you. So this is, I think, one that's of high interest to the community, and we've heard this question over and over. What is your office is using technically county funded staff time and resources to screen individuals, issue notifications, coordinate with federal agencies, and facilitate transfers. Can you provide a clear accounting of the total public cost of these activities in 2025, including staff hours, administrative processing, and any indirect costs?
No, we don't track that, and we have increased staff, we have other line activities, we would have the staff employed, whether they would do this function or not.
Would you be willing to do analysis of that?
I'll have to look and see how intensive that would be for my staff.
Would it behoove us to actually have that number, given that we are facing challenging financial times?
Well, the board, if the board decides not to fund those positions, then I won't be able to do all of the other functions of the jail and population management unit and the processing unit, which is very critical to processing work and things like that. For me to separate out how many minutes in a day they might spend making a phone call or processing the paper would be very intensive for my team.
Given everything we've heard tonight, from the data to community testimony, what changes, if any, is your office willing to make to ensure full alignment with both state law and our county standards?
Well, I hear the community very strongly, the comments that were made today have been made. I still feel very strongly that it's much safer for our community, it's much safer for the individuals in custody, it's much safer for the agents who are picking up these individuals, that they pick them up in a safe environment of the jail setting. They're going to be looking for them anyway. They know who's in our custody anyway. They didn't face criminal charges anyway. If they're going to go into the community, there will be collateral damage, and that's my bigger concern.
Wouldn't it be safe to say that the activities that ICE has engaged in that are basically sowing fear and terror in our communities because there's no due process being observed, there even being citizens being arrested, citizens that have been murdered? We've heard the hesitation from people to call law enforcement. Would you say that that makes us safe?
I am hearing different stories from different community members. We have very strong relationships with our immigrant communities, particularly in North County, And they voice very strongly that they don't want a child molester released back in their communities. People will continue to reoffend and victimize those communities. They're not victimizing other communities, they're victimizing our immigrant communities. And I get a lot of concern from community members that I would do anything differently, or that I would unleash potentially ICE to target their communities because they're looking for an individual that they want from the jail.
And I would say that I don't think any of us wants a child molester out in the community. I think that's something we can agree on. The problem is that if we're not seeing ICE observe legal due process, or if they're detaining people without perhaps even charges against them, then, there's a case to be made to go the other way as well.
Well, that's what I see them doing in the community. The people that pick it up in the jail, they are following due process with a judicial warrant. Those 50-some individuals had a judicial warrant. The other individuals had a criminal conviction, which makes them in violation of not only, allows me to do what I'm doing, but also makes them in violation of federal law. So I think there's a much stronger case to be made that due process will be followed if we follow SB 54 than if they come to the communities and are contacting people without the benefit of a judicial warrant.
Okay, I'm going to thank you, Chair, because there, and for my colleagues to ask questions as well. I have no comments.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you, Chair, for the presentation and for members of the public who continue year after year to be engaged in this forum. I think it's important to reiterate something that one of the public commenters said, is that the reason that we are here and that we have to hold the Truth Act forum is because there is continued cooperation in facts, rights, for access to individuals. And so without that, we would not need to be here year after year. And on display is what is clearly a difference of philosophy around what makes people feel safe and what doesn't. So I think we've heard a lot of that, those opinions. I continue to hear those opinions. I have opinions of my own, obviously, that I don't think I have to tell you. But that's kind of what it boils down to, and there's a lot of legal justification on either side. I think one of the most important things here is, I have a lot of concerns, but I was focused on this one. And that is, we know that the president is going to make sure that ICE gets their money. He's holding up airports and everything else right now to make sure that they get their money. Why on God's green earth, when we are in a budget situation, the way that we're in, are we helping and participating? I've gotten calls from people that would not be in the chamber with the immigrant advocates. Okay, they wouldn't be here. They don't agree with a lot of the values that our community members and many of our advocates hold, but they still are having issues with seeing deputies with ICE raiding certain communities. They just, whether they are landlords or whatever else, I'm receiving those calls. And so in a budget time where, I spent 12 hours in Sacramento on Tuesday, I'll update the board on that either today or tomorrow, with all of our officials saying, we're gonna be $300 million short. This is gonna be our annual hit based on HR1. The same president who made sure that got through Congress is also making sure that we're not even separating out TSA and people are going hungry on their fourth pay period when they haven't received money. Yet we're helping the federal immigration enforcement officials that he's going to make sure get paid. When we don't know what's going to happen to our sheriff's department, to our self-sufficiency workers. We don't know. So all I'm asking is a partnership to try to, we know that it's hard to do it in real time, but to give us some sort of estimate or create some sort of methodology where you are calculating how much we're cooperating and what it's costing us.
I didn't say I wouldn't, Supervisor. I said that I have to look at how time-consuming that is for my staff. We are very much at capacity in our jail system right now, as you all know, and I've told you many, many times. But for me to say, make some promise here tonight, that I don't know that we can the whole is very responsible in my opinion.
Okay, well, you said you were trying, and I appreciate that. What I'm talking about, I know there's the issue around the jails and the transfer that's going on there that has to do with the warrants. We've heard the direct testimony about how that does impact families. I have heard also about out in the community, on the streets as well, where ICE and the sheriff deputies have been in partnership.
That's categorically false, and I think those are perceptions people have. They're not cooperating and working with ICE to support the immigration. If there's activity in the community, and the occasions we've had, we've been very transparent after we've done our research and seen what occurred. We had an incident, I think it was 2 weeks ago at North Coastal Station, where ICE used our public parking lot for some staging. We weren't aware they were there. They left before we were able to find out what was going on. We put out a press release. We communicated with our community. We talked to the city council. I took phone calls from senators over that. I know how sensitive this is to the community. I know what it was like when they see law enforcement. We do joint operations with the FBI, with other folks. We don't do joint operations with ICE. If they do conduct an activity in the community, it causes some disruption or there's something that goes on. Typically what happens is community members call us, we respond, same with San Diego Police or anyone else. We're basically just going to see what's occurring. We're responding to a call for service. Our goal is to de-escalate, calm the situation, see what's going on, and understand the activity that's going on, keep everyone safe.
Okay, well, I'm gonna go back to you trying to get some kind of way to develop a methodology for us to be able to determine how much this is.
I appreciate that.
No matter what we end up doing with that information, I think it's just super important that we look at it from that lens. Because philosophically, there's a lot of different opinions, but as far as our budget is concerned and the constraints that we face, I think that is just worth having the conversation. So I appreciate that, and I know it's been a long day for you as well. But the last thing I'll say is that information is very important to me, which is why we had the exchange earlier today, just because as much information as I have, I can then be able to justify to the community why we're making the decisions that we're making. That is very important to me, especially in times like this, where I feel like I want to be able to fund the things that people need so that your folks don't have to encounter it, right? So I'm trying to balance, what housing looks like and what all these other needs look like, so that you, all solutions, invest and deal with the most violent offenders, right? And so that's just my philosophy and how I'll be approaching these purposes. But thank you again for your presentation.
Thank you very much to my colleagues. First of all, I just really want to thank all the community members who are here. I know it's late. I know people came from work, people left with their kids at home, and really made an effort to be part of this incredibly important dialogue in our community. And I want to uplift and echo the comments of my colleagues that while this has been a conversation in our community for a long time, there's a way in which the moment feels really fraught and really different right now. And obviously that's being driven by the way in which the Trump administration is continuing to terrorize communities by weaponizing ICE as, in many ways the private police force. That's very scary. I think very scary constitutionally. We've seen really horrible things happening across our country by ICE agents that are empowered and poorly trained and then sent out. And people are being killed. And it's very scary. People are being disappeared into jails in other countries. And for whatever kind of convergences or divergences that I think many folks in San Diego have about sort of the nuances of immigration law and immigration enforcement, there's no question that this is somehow a really different and really scary moment. So I just wanted to center that and acknowledge that we really have to be, as much as this is always an important issue, that this is an issue now that's really centered, and I think is veering us as a country towards a constitutional crisis, to be quite honest and to be quite frank. So I just wanted to say that that's what's really centered for me as kind of we think about this. I appreciate the focus of my colleague, Vice Chair, on budgetary implications. I think we all know that we really do have incredibly limited resources at this moment, especially as so much of what we relied on our community is under attack and is being cut back, while those funds are then being reallocated to ICE. And so I don't think we want to be part of that here in San Diego County. And Chair Martinez, I appreciate your willingness to try to figure out, the costs. Of course, let's not make the costs even higher by spending too much time calculating the costs that it's costing calculating the costs. But if you could put some kind of estimate, I think you all could probably come up with that would be helpful for us to know. I actually had questions that came, frankly, from a different source. I was contacted by a reporter regarding an article, regarding some reporting, and that this would be a good opportunity to kind of better understand from your point of view what's happening in this situation. So I don't know if you saw this article, it came out just actually 2 hours ago. It says, why are private companies investigating rapes at an ICE detention center instead of the sheriff? From How Matters. I don't know if you have
Yes, I know where to go.
Okay. So I guess I think I just wanted to better understand. Obviously, this is referred by the reporter, but better understand from your perspective. It says, according to the article, it says the MOU that governs how sexual abuse allegations from detained individuals are to be investigated. And so my understanding is that before your department is notified that someone has reported a sexual assault, the private facilities warden, in this case, Core Civic, first determines whether there's enough credible evidence to warrant calling you. So in other words, the Core Civic is the first, judge and jury as to whether there's enough credible evidence to call our sheriff to do an investigation. So I'm just trying to make sure I'm fully understanding of this.
Yeah, thank you, and I appreciate the opportunity to respond to this. So in context, we investigated those crimes. In 2024, we investigated an allegation of a staff member who had sexually assaulted someone who was in custody, and that person was prosecuted. We have investigated those in the past. We have not in the last year and a half received any phone calls from someone who's in custody or incarcerated in Core Civic facilities. We have received one phone call, I believe it was last year, from the warden that there was a TRIA incident, which is a Prison Rape Elimination Act incident, where someone in custody made an allegation that someone else in custody had sexually assaulted them. They notified us of that TRIA incident, but did not call us back to further investigate it, and the notification came from them, not the individual who was in custody.
Okay, I guess I think this just on this article, so I think just trying to wrap my head around it. I think I'm just sort of deeply uncomfortable, frankly, with the idea that Core Civic would be deciding whether something's bad enough to call you.
I don't know how else we would get notified, but we don't work in those facilities. We don't have direct access to anybody who's incarcerated in the facilities. They could call the sheriff's office themselves if they had a phone number to call, I guess.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I don't have a good answer. I completely understand the logistical problem. If someone is incarcerated, right, and detained, and they don't have a phone, how are they going to call you to report? So I think I'm just, there was something, I mean, I think my colleague and we were there, and it was, did not inspire a lot of confidence in the administration of this facility. And, now we're continuing to get all these reports, right? People like throwing bottles over the walls, and rapes and assaults, and all sorts of terrible conditions. and we can't get in there, even though we're supposed to be able to get in there, to do a public health inspection. That's our authority, and that's why we're in court now, trying to get in there and check out what the heck is going on, so we can, make sure that there's, people are being, detained in a way that at the very least, is humane and not dangerous. So, I don't have a good answer, to be honest. I understand the operational problem, but there's something about the structure of an MOU that says, hey, CoreCivic, you guys get the first cut at deciding whether this is serious enough to call the sheriff. I'd rather have you guys out there,
I appreciate that.
investigating.
I appreciate that. Yeah, everyone wants the sheriff to do the investigation of every, facility in the county, including the prisons and the juvenile facilities, is logistically, as you said, very difficult.
Okay, well, just, maybe we can circle back to sort of maybe some ideas or ways of tackling this, but there was other kind of points in the article I wanted to get. According to this article, it says CoreCivic shows that in 2023, there were 41 sexual abuse and harassment complaints filed at OTM Mesa, including 10 involving staff. Do you know how many of those 41 complaints resulted in a call to your department?
I don't know. No, we can find out.
Okay, yeah, I think my request, if possible, would be for you to consider what could be better done. And I understand the logistical challenges, but there's something about an MOU that explicitly delegates to CoreCivic.
Well, we could not have an MOU at all, and they would report to us and then we would investigate. So we have to also work with the people who are in charge of the facility. The reporting mechanism would have to come from the facility.
Could you have an MOU that you'll come investigate anything that's reported?
I don't know if we have the staff capacity for that. Perhaps you could give me much more positions and we could create an investigative. I completely understand your concern, and it doesn't look like it's an appropriate way to investigate these complaints, but I really don't know how many are occurring. We have our own detention investigation unit that's working overtime on all of the investigations of complaints in our facilities related to everything from sexual assaults to drug investigations to other types of assaults. There's a lot of activity that goes on in any facility. For me to have the capacity to investigate every crime or every sexual assault that potentially is alleged in another facility in this county is a difficult task.
I'm hearing you, it makes me really, really troubled and really distressed to hear you say, as a person who has great expertise in this matter, that it might be so overwhelming and so many complaints and so much abuse within this.
I'm not saying that at all. I don't know how many complaints there are. We don't respond. I don't know how many people received or what's actually going on. I know what you're saying is in the article.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know anything else other than this article either, so, and I just got it, so I'm
It's very premature to make this.
yeah, I think there's a lot that's not known, I mean, at all, which is why I'm asking you. I think what I would just say at this moment, our best protection in this county is for us to protect ourselves from, I think, federal overreach that is endangering everyone in our community, and, I understand some of the challenges, but I think if we can think together about how we can better, be creative. I appreciate the creativity of county council and kind of trying to figure out how to fight our way in to do our public health inspection. Not sure we're gonna win, but we're gonna fight. And I think it would be really helpful if we could figure out or think about how, the sheriff could be a partner in, better holding us accountable, frankly, and making sure that those kinds of pretty horrible abuses are not happening right under our nose.
And I think there must, and I know there's such distrust of federal authorities, but I imagine there's a federal regulatory authority. I just don't know anything about federal facilities or privately owned jails or correctional facilities, so you're not asking an expert in my own facilities, but I don't know anything about other operations.
Okay. Well, hopefully we can continue this conversation, and now that this is, I mean, again, this is very early, this just came out, so, and I just felt like it was helpful and lucky that I had the opportunity to ask these questions here at the TRUVAC, but, hopefully we can kind of figure out what we can do on this, especially given the, all these reported, sexual assaults, which I find really, really upsetting. Yeah, okay, any other questions or comments from any of my colleagues? Okay. Thank you again, to Sheriff Kelly Martinez for bringing your team here and taking the time to answer all of these questions. Thank you for everyone here, for being here, for participating in the TRUVAC Forum. I know how hard it is for you to get here in an evening and make the time, so I really appreciate this. I think at this moment in our country, the fear and uncertainty around ICE is really, frankly, unprecedented. It's been bad before, but this is a different kind of moment. And I just want to say to anyone who is afraid that I am personally committed, and I remain committed and continue fighting to protect due process and the rule of law and make sure people feel safe and are safe here in San Diego County. These kinds of policies, these kinds of principles, they're not just words, they're principles that have to be reflected in our actions and in our policies. Our work is not over. This is just a moment to have a conversation and pause, and we have to keep pushing for a more equitable and compassionate system for everyone in San Diego County. So with that, the session is adjourned, and we'll be in recess for 13 hours until Wednesday, March 25th at 9.